So this was a name that I've been watching for the past couple of weeks. I had posted this around here and I was looking for either a slight pullback down to this pivot and then we get the bigger expansion up to this level up here at 476.85. That happened to fail and this actually tracked better with this red zone that I had drawn down here. We got the pullback back perfectly to this trend zone that you can see we held two times back here as well. So from there, this was one of my top watch coming into today for the reason that it was a tight inside day and it was opening up directly beneath the prior week's high. You can see over here, this is the weekly chart and it was forming a hammer bar. So I was looking for continuation up. This move is building for the move to all-time high. And there was potential that this was going to come last week, but it got the pullback first because the general market had a bigger pullback. So this week, I'm looking for the same exact setup. And I even posted this in the free Discord. This exact trade idea right here, as long as over 395s. Look at where we held on this day right here. We came down, retested this trend zone, but we held above 395s. So coming into today, I'm going to flip over now to the intraday chart. This is going to be the 5 minute right here, and then we have the 15 minute over here, just so you can see kind of what I was looking at. This is going to be what I mentioned pre-market, an hour before the market had even opened. Great risk reward because there's this strong weekly hammer, but also because of what I mentioned before. This is going for that new all-time high, so it's just a matter of how it gets there and how we can trade it to the upside on the way to those targets, which these are some of the targets that I mentioned as well. And I mentioned these specific strikes that I was looking at taking because this can move $20 to $30 plus this week. And depending on how this is going to hold and trade into about Wednesday timeframe, this could potentially move even greater than that. So this is one that I'm looking to take and still continue to trade higher throughout the duration of this weekly time frame as long as this is going to hold higher lows and we have favorable structure to continue to get this trade to the upside. So this morning, this is where I mentioned the entry. I called out the 470 calls at $280 and the 475 calls at 215, whether you wanted to take the more expensive contracts or the less expensive ones. These are the ones that I personally took. I took both of these strikes with me leaning more to the 470 calls just because I like to stay a little bit closer to the money, even though at the time of me calling out this trade, it was actually trading at $445. So that was still $25 out the money. But relative to how big of a move this could potentially make this week, I thought it was the good contract to take, especially for the price point. I was just looking for something to be able to leverage to get this move to the upside. So this was the game plan. This is what I called out. This was the entry right here on this candle right here. We had this inside 5 minute bar and we were building at higher prices. And it was happening directly underneath the prior week's high, which is going to be this green line that you see right here. And I can even make this darker just so you can see this is the prior week's high right here. So we had an inside bar right underneath the prior week's high. And then we had this level up here at 451.29. So this is where I mentioned that I'm going to trim some contracts. Directly at this high is where I mentioned that I was going to trim these contracts because we tested the level that I was looking for this to trade into. And then from there, see if this can start to build at higher prices, which it does with this bull flag type look that it makes throughout the duration of the rest of the day, and then gets the bigger break. So we got the level test right here, the pullback. We started to build in a little bit of a bull flag formation. We ended up breaking out towards the end of the day at around 2 p.m., 2:30. At 2:36, I mentioned right here, 100% on both strikes. This is another good spot to trim if you already haven't. And at this point, the contracts had went from $280 and $215 to 560 and 470. So they had already moved over double the price since our entry down here. So we got these at $445 on the stock price at this price point right here that was already a $7 long. These contracts actually pushed up a little bit more than here. I didn't get any sells off above this price point. I trimmed right here, and then I have some contracts that I'm swinging into the next day. So this is just a brief breakdown of what I was looking for on the trade between this 5 minute and the 15-minute chart. Again, what we were looking at on the daily time frame, that weekly hammer bar that was forming for that higher breakout, and then basically how we handled it intraday, as well as how these contracts actually moved. This was one of the only trades that I took today besides Tesla longs, basically. And this was one of the only ones that I needed because it was a very good trade. There was practically no drawdown from the point of entry. It never went lower from the price point that I called it out, and it still is building higher at higher prices. And so I'm still holding some of these contracts to swing into tomorrow because if this entry is going to be the best entry from this point on Monday, and this tries to continue higher throughout the rest of the week, then I got a very good entry point, and this could potentially hold this zone that I'm looking for and get those bigger moves up to the next targets that I'm looking for at 466, 473, 486.2 and that 476.85, which is going to be another big pivot. So this is just a breakdown of what I was looking for, how it ended up occurring, and there's still potential entries tomorrow and later in the week to continue to take this higher. Because if this is going to get that bigger move to the upside, then this could still continue higher. And realistically, this has $20 to $40 of room this week. So if that is going to occur, there's still some more trades to be had. So hopefully this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.